Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside 85 Afghanistan Graveyard of Empires. This is a squad battles game designed by Mark H. Walker and is published by Flying Pig Games. Well, I just got in my copy of the Kickstarter game and it looks fantastic. Same as we saw with 65, you're going to see the same thing here with 85. This is using the same system, the squad battles game, so it's going to be card driven. And you're going to be using different actions off the cards to be able to carry out your combat and do different things. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. 85 Graveyard of Empires is the second game in the Squad Battles series. Building on the mechanics introduced in 65 Squad Battles in the jungles of Vietnam, Graveyard of Empires features tense squad-level battles between the Afghan Mujahideen and Soviet Red Army in an exciting card-driven hex encounter game. The game includes 5 geomorphic mounted game boards, 4 die-cut counter sheets with huge 1 and 1.35 inch counters. Yeah, these counters are big. 69 playing cards to control unit actions, introduce events, and provide surprise victory conditions, full color rules scenario booklet, and multiple player aid cards, and a 6-sided die. It's for ages 14 and up. For 2 players, playing time is 1 to 4 hours and 3 minutes. I love how Flying Pig always throws in these weird times like 1 to 4 hours and 3 minutes. And we have an example of the map and the counters at the top. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. All right, we get our deck of cards, got our 1d6, rules and scenario book, player aid cards, counter sheets, and remember, I said these counters are huge, and they are. And then we have the geomorphic maps. So let's set up the maps and take a closer look at the game. And we'll take a look at the maps that come with the game. There are 5 matted map boards. You're going to be using them either individually or together in pairs. All the scenarios are either 1 map or 2 maps. So they'll be laying out side by side or top to bottom, different ways to give you the different playing field that you'll be on. Start off here with map 4. We've got some different buildings as well as woods on the left and right hand side of the map. On the next map, we have more buildings, hills, woods, crops, and some rough terrain. More hills and rough as well as a couple of buildings on the next map. Then we get some woods, scrub in 3 different locations as well as more rough on the next map. Then on the final map, we have plenty of clear terrain. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game, starting off with the terrain effects chart. On the left-hand side, gives a list of all the different types of terrain, and on the bottom, you have the terrain legend. You get cost for wheel, off-road, leg, track, and then your cover factor, line of sight, and obstacle height, and then any of the applicable notes for each of the different pieces of terrain. And on the back, we have the modifiers for AP range fire, HE range fire, and then range combat soft target fire resolution, and then the AP to hit modifiers on the bottom right. Then on the next sheet, you have the sequence of play, giving you all the steps for your sequence of play, and then at the bottom, you have the turn track. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. We've got Soviet forces at the top, Mujahideen at the bottom. Got a good mix of units too. T-55s, T-62s, BTR-70s, BMP-1s, GAZ-66, Mi-24s, and Mi-8s. For the Muj, you got BMP-1s and T-55s. Like we said before, these are really big counters, so you're going to need to make sure that you've either got these in bags or you use a Plano box to hold these in. On the next sheet, we get to the infantry units. We've got rifle, Spetsnaz, RPK, and RPG teams for the Soviets, along with some leaders. And then for the Mujahideen, we've got some leaders, rifle units, DSHKs, RPDs, and RPG teams. On the next sheet, we have the remainder of the Mujahideen forces, as well as various administrative counters, along with a couple of different types of terrain that'll be in use, such as bunkers and wire. Then on the final sheet, we have the remainder of the administrative counters. And one little note here is there should be hex overlay markers that come with this game, just like these counters. But Mark had mentioned that Those were not printed. He's getting those printed and sending them out to everybody as soon as he can. But in the meantime, you can download the PDFs and create your own hex terrain if you'd like to, or you can just wait until they come in or use another substitute. Just wanted to throw that note in there. Next, we'll take a look at a few examples of the cards that are used in the game. You'll see that each of them has 2 action areas at the top. These will give you 2 different types of actions you can use, and it's also color-coded. Like you see here, these green ones for rally and second wind, those are done on your impulse. The yellow here, this is done in support of another action. So if you did something and you wanted to follow on with another one, like this one, panic, if you attacked, and then it says here for panic, play after any attack against the non-hero infantry unit, remove the targeted unit if it is reduced and shaken. So you can hit them and then you can make them panic using this card in concert with the other. Then you have the retreat card. This is red right here. This is played on your opponent's impulse as a reaction card. In this instance, retreat. Ignore the close assault results for both sides. The card owner must retreat all friendly units from the hex, mark all participating units, ops complete. Then the number in the lower left-hand side, this is going to be used to determine whether the target of an AP fire is hit, armor piercing. Along with that, you'll also see the text turret hit in most of these cards. There's an MF down there as well, but the turret hit, this tells you that the vehicle's turret has been hit. And then the MF is for moving fire. That means that when the card's drawn, a vehicle using move and fire action misses its target regardless of the number drawn. The number on the right-hand side, that is going to be your armor-piercing fire bonus. Then the words above it for hit, that's going to tell you if you get a hit result for your HE attack, and that will be color dependent as well. As you see, you've got some green and then a yellow one here. Then you have these end turn cards, and depending on the scenario, there are a number of end turn cards that are mixed into the deck, and as they're pulled out, once the appropriate number of end turn cards is drawn, that is the end of the turn. Then the last aspect of the card that you'll see only on some cards is this power marker right here. And that is going to tell you that you can activate that selected unit's power. You've got things like leadership, marksmanship, sagger, aggressive, brutal, intensive fire, mortar, explosive rounds, deadly shot, resilient, rapid fire, prep fire, and conceal. So you'll just disregard what's on the card and you'll be using any of those powers that are on that unit. Then we have the last 2 types of cards that are used in the game. We have events 1 through 4, and this is going to be determined by each of the scenarios. They're going to tell you how many event cards put in there, and when it's drawn, each of those events is going to take place. Above that, we have the bonus victory conditions. Like, for example, eliminate an enemy sniper, not a Soviet rifle with marksman power. Eliminate 2 enemy, RPD, RPK, DSHK, RPG, AGS-17, or 1 enemy T-62 or T-55, and then reconstitute 1 unit. Those are additional bonus victory conditions you may get. And lastly, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 24-page full-color rulebook. Inside of the front cover, we get the table of contents listing out all the different rule sections and their associated page numbers. Start off with the introduction, then we get into the components, the maps, the counters, and these counters are going to be a little bit different than you're used to seeing because you're not going to have your standard numbers on each of the counters. You're going to have symbols. There's a breakdown of all of them here: hard target, soft target, targeting modifier, armor factor, armor piercing factor, high explosive factor, movement factor, and then powers and abilities, as well as heroes. Then we get into the action cards, which we've already talked about when we looked at those. Going to give you a breakdown of how to read those. Then we get to the sequence of play, your event cards. Remember, you put those in the deck, and depending on how many are told to you by the scenario, and then as you draw them out, that will dictate the events that take place in the scenario. So you deal your cards, determine initiative, player with initiative starts, then you get the reserve phase, cleanup phase, the player impulse. You're going to go back and forth, each player alternating impulses. Player action cards, resolve your actions. Discard, you've got your movement, movement classes, vehicle movement, minimum movement, transporting units, unloading your passenger, loaded carrier fires. If a carrier is destroyed, carrier shaken. Shaken passengers may unload. Shaken carrier cannot be loaded. You got the let's get 'em action. And then we have specific rules for helicopters. Your stacking limitations, range combat, fire against soft targets, determine your firepower, execute your attack, And then you get your high explosive factor results. Then we have some combat examples here, special cases, more examples sprinkled throughout. A lot of the text examples here are in red. Opportunity fire, artillery with an illustrated example, your barrage markers, assault combat, line of sight, a line of sight illustration, and that's needed because line of sight is always one of the most confusing things to get your head around in a tactical game. Vehicle combat, all the steps for that, as well as an illustrated example there. Target facing, rally, shaking units do not automatically recover, reconstitution, helicopter activation and movement, transporting passengers, helicopter combat. Then we get to the action cards, artillery, bloodlust, canister, command ops, fast move, fire, let's get 'em, move, move and fire, punishing fire, rally, rally 2, reinforcements, reload and fire, scout, second wind, and concealed are the different actions that you'll have on those cards. Then you have support cards, aimed shot, ambush, bullet storm, critical hit, panic, retreat, grenades, reaction cards, glancing shot, light wounds, and unexpected cover. Then you have your abilities, which are specific to different units. Assault, assault plus, difficult target, target coordination, pathfinder, no movement to fire, sniper, spraying fire, tactical, elite, indirect fire, fanatic, and single use. And then the powers, which we briefly talked about, you'll see those here when we get to the back of the rules. Fortifications, foxholes, and bunkers. Then we get to scenarios starting on page 24. There are 8 scenarios that are included in 85 Graveyard of Empires. Although each is different, there are blanket rules that apply to each scenario unless otherwise specified. First one is Kill Zone, and it's going to give you the length of the game, the turns, your setup for your Mujahideen and your Soviets, your reinforcements, scenario special rules, your victory conditions, and then the event cards. Then we get to Ninth Company. Same thing, it's going to give you a breakdown of the maps used, as well as the turns, your victory conditions, your event cards. Tanks at Zawar, Jalalabad, Hammer and Anvil, City Boys, Ambush at Sharkankel, Air Assault, and then we get to the index at the back of the rules, a couple of blank pages. And then on the back of the rulebook, we have a listing of all the powers and abilities. So you're going to want to make sure you get a scan of this and create a player aid card out of it, which is what I did with 65. I'm surprised that they did not include that as its own player aid for 85, but hopefully they'll be able to do that in the future in the next iteration of the game. And that is a look at everything you get inside of 85 Afghanistan Graveyard of Empires. This is a squad battles game designed by Mark H. Walker and is published by Flying Pig Games. Well, we now have the second in the squad battle series. First was 65, now we've got 85. If you were interested in 65 but never got a hold of a copy because it's now out of print and were intrigued by the system, definitely jump on this now because 85 eventually will go out of print too, and probably pretty quick because 65 I think went out pretty fast also. There's also a solitaire component, which we're going to be taking a look at next. Alone in the Mountains is the name of that, but for now, this is the opposed version here, 2-player. I have played this solitaire, and I didn't have any problems with it, as well as playing with the solitaire system itself, because it's good to play both sides and just get a feel for the cards and the card play, that whole dynamic in the game. We'll also be taking a look at Alone in the Mountain, which is the solitaire component to this, but as I said, you can play both sides open-handed with yourself just to get a feeling for the game and let the narrative just get driven by the cards and by your decisions there. It's a really fun game to play opposed. It's also really fun if you play it solitaire with or without the solitaire component, but of course, it's better with the solitaire component. But like I said, if you were interested in 65 and missed out and wanted to jump on that then and you can't, well, get on 85 now while it's in print and get your order in. As I mentioned before, Mark has said that they did miss out on getting the overlays printed out for the different pieces of terrain. They've provided a PDF so that way we can create our own if we would like to while we wait for them to print those copies. But he is going to work on getting those printed and shipped out to all the backers as soon as he can. So you go over to the Flying Pig website and it is there for download. You can just put it on paper or you can put it on cardstock, whatever you'd like to do, and then use those in the interim while we wait. Unless you've got other terrain overlays that you can use from another game, then sure, go ahead and use that. That'll work just as good. Good thing is it doesn't break the game not having them, because we have other options that we can use until we get those real pieces. Well, looking forward to getting this one on the table and checking it out and getting into some action between the Soviets and the Mujahideen. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.